All right. Problem solved. You should be hearing me now. I hope so. If not, I will pause everything and get going. Nope. You're hearing me now. So, welcome on and all to Pacific414 episode review, where the host doesn't always have everything set up correctly. But in this live edition of Pacific414 episode review, I am going over the Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 6, From the Desert Comes a Stranger. And as you can see in this first shot here, we see some pikes, and they are gathering some spice and some credits, but we also see just a small little bit of somebody who we've been introduced to before. And that person is Marshall Cod Vanth. That's right. He's there to tell the Pikes, y'all ain't wanted in these parts. Most Pegos doesn't want you here. You hear? So you better get on that land speeder and go skedaddle, cause you ain't wanted around here. You hear? So he gives them a warning. They ignore the warning. So what does he do after they ignore the warning? Well, he shoots 3 of the 4 dead. And then he gives this guy an ultimatum and says, you better tell your bosses, the syndicate, that they best not be coming around these parts again. Because if they do, they're in for a fight. And I do want to say hello to the Padawannabe. Welcome, brother. I can't really talk right now. Not right now. Not right now. Let me send a message to someone who's trying to contact me on Discord, just so they know I'm not trying to ignore them. All right. One second. All right. There we go. Again, I don't want that person to think I'm ignoring them and not wanting to speak with them. But, anyways, the marshal tells this last member of the Pike Syndicate that was in Los Pegos, you ain't one around here, but, you know, let your bosses know that next time they come around these parts, they're in for a fight, because most Pegos, we don't want you here. You hear? All right, so let's show you what else happens in this episode, and I will be talking about it. I will let you all know I did think about doing an edit and then uploading it later for this episode, but then I got to thinking, no, I want to do it live, so I'm going to go ahead and do this review live. This way I can speak to everybody and, get everybody else's thoughts on this episode. So we run into Mando, and he's heading to this planet. And there's a reason why he's headed to this planet. Let's go ahead and get to Mando in his Naboo starfighter. Tight quarters, but hey, a ship is a ship, as Kirk said in Star Trek 4. So he's approaching the ground. He lands. We do see a familiar looking astromech, a very familiar astromech. And come to find out, Mando is actually on this planet to see Luke and Grogu, because he has something for him. He has the chainmail outfit for baby Grogu, and he wants to give it to him. So R2 ends up taking him to this area where these droids are constructing the new Jedi temple. And R2 shuts himself down as soon as they get there, and Mando's trying to get R2 to power back on, but R2 doesn't do it. So Mando actually tries talking to one of the construction droids, the building droids. I'm not sure what they're called, but he tries talking to one of these guys. And of course, doesn't get an answer. And then what the droids do, I'm trying to get to it, is they actually end up building Mando a bench. And then it cuts to a scene with Luke and baby Grogu up on this hill. So let's see, try to get to it. So we see here Luke and Grogu. They're meditating. Luke is teaching Grogu in the ways of the Force. So they're meditating, and Grogu is actually levitating this frog, and the frog actually gets close enough to Grogu where we know Grogu wants to have a little snack. But Luke prevents it from happening, has the frog go back into the pond. And then what ends up happening, try to get to it, is Luke starts using his force abilities and raises all the frogs that are inside the swamp. And Grogu's amazed. Grogu's like, how come I can't do that? Well, Luke couldn't do it in Empire. And just so you know, Empire is my favorite out of all the Star Wars movies. Second favorite is Revenge of the Sith. So after Luke teaches him that lesson on how to levitate, he's trying to get Grogu to jump like a Jedi. And Grogu just isn't doing it. But before that even happens, he's teaching Grogu some more lessons. He's talking to Grogu, telling him what the Force is, that it's an energy field that binds us, penetrates us, surrounds us. And we get a nice piece of music. And there's a good reason, because he mentions Yoda. And I gotta admit, anytime you hear a piece of John Williams music, it gets you right here. It really gets you in the heart. And let's see. I want to welcome my good buddy, the Nordporial Life Form. Now, just so you all know, tonight at 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central, the Nordporial Life Form will be having his sci-fi chat, and he will be talking about The Empire Strikes Back. So please go over to his channel and watch his sci-fi chat tonight on The Empire Strikes Back. As a matter of fact, I am going to go ahead and post Nerd's link in the chat. Give me 1 second. And go watch his live panel, live chat. Go ahead and post the actual link to the live stream tonight. So here you all go. Go check him out. And a little less, not even 45 minutes from now. So thank you for stopping by, Brian. Really appreciate it, brother. Okay. If you don't mind me hopping on at the last minute, I probably won't be there right away if I'm still doing this, but yeah, as long as you don't mind me hopping on, I'll be more than happy to join. Appreciate it, brother. Padawan be. Yes, I gave you a wrench. You deserve it, brother. All right. I'll be there. I promise. Let's see. All right. Thank you, brother. Yes, we are all joined by the Force. We're a great bunch of friends here. Really, we're a great bunch of friends. But anyways, let me get back on track here. Luke is telling Grogu about Yoda and how Yoda spoke in riddles. How Yoda was a great teacher, a great Jedi master, and that he learned a lot from Yoda. And here, oops, I didn't want to skip that far ahead, but here they actually stop in the middle of their conversation to help Grogu remember some past memories that he's tried to block for many years. And you already saw a sneak peek as to why he's trying to block those memories. It's because he's remembering back to Revenge of the Sith, back to Order 66. So he's having the flashback. 3 Jedi are shot and killed after deflecting some blasters fire, and we see the clones. And obviously, this clone is either spotting Grogu or someone else or something else and starts making a charge to him. So after that flashback, Luke has a further conversation with Grogu, tells him, a few lessons that he needs to learn in order to become a full Jedi. Let's see. Nerporial is actually all right. So that's it for the messages at the moment. But Luke is there telling Grogu about a few more lessons. Meanwhile, Mando was taking a cat nap because he's waiting for Luke and Grogu to show up when all of a sudden another face ends up showing up. And I wouldn't say disturbing Mando, but catching him by surprise. Yes, Ahsoka Tano is back. And on another note, real quick, before I get way too far into this, Dave Filoni did direct this episode, and Jon Favreau did write this episode. Now, let's see. Anything else? No. So, Ahsoka and Mando have a conversation, and Mando lets Ahsoka know that he has a gift for Grogu. It's the chainmail outfit, and he would like to give it to Grogu. But there's a problem. One thing that we are reminded of in this episode is about attachment. Jedis cannot get attached. Tell that to Anakin. Anakin, who was attached to Ahsoka. Anakin, who was attached to Padme. Anakin, who was attached to his mother. Where did those attachments lead Anakin? To the dark side of the Force. So Ahsoka is telling Mando, I tried to warn you of this. Tried to warn you of your attachment and Grogu's attachment to you. And she does say that Grogu misses him. So we get a little further in their conversation, and then it ends up stopping, and Mando can see Grogu training with Luke. And Ahsoka doesn't feel that it would be wise for Mando to pop in and give the Beskar chainmail to baby Grogu because it would disrupt his training to become a Jedi. So Mando ends up leaving after giving the chainmail Beskar to Ahsoka to give to Luke. So Luke can give it to Grogu. And of course, Grogu knows that Mando is leaving when he sees his ship take off and reaches out, but doesn't have enough power in the Force to take him along. So Luke is having more conversation with baby Grogu, and we basically got a call back to Empire Strikes Back, where at one point Grogu is back in the sack. You know, Luke's carrying Grogu like he carried Yoda on Dagobah, doing the training, and we're seeing a lot of the same tricks that we saw on Dagobah in Empire Strikes Back. Luke is jumping, swinging, flipping. So we're seeing all that. And Luke is still trying to get Grogu to jump, which you're seeing here. Grogu's trying to jump, and he doesn't do too well when it comes to that. So here we are with Luke doing his training, doing the jumping, doing the flipping, and he ends up climbing this bamboo. And he gets up to the highest point of this bamboo where you're looking into this valley, looking into this vast mountain range. And he's saying that this area is perfectly balanced, like the Force. Forest, the trees, the mountains, the sky, all of that. So, you know, Grogu is still trying with his little heart to succeed in the teachings that Luke has given him. And he's struggling, but you know, how many of us has struggled when we're trying something new and we know we can do it. We're just having a difficult time doing it at first because it's new to us. We're not as experienced as the person that's teaching us. And there's even a session, I'm trying to get to it, where, let's see. No, I might be skipping over it. Yeah, I just did. But there's a training session where Luke actually has his lightsaber out and is practicing the various Jedi steps of lightsaber training and different stances and everything. And then there's a point where Luke is still trying to get Grogu to jump. If it'll stop buffering here, I can show you. But he has the training ball out. And this training ball, we've seen it in two instances that I can remember off the top of my head. The first being in, of course, the original Star Wars. And then, of course, Rey is using it in the Star Wars sequels. But what Luke is using it for is to try to give Grogu a reason to jump. And he activates it with the Force. Try and to get back to the point I want to get back to. And before he even activates it, if it would come up. Okay, so we're just gonna have to deal with it right here. But anyways, before Luke even tries to activate it, and I want to say hello to Low Specs Linux Laptop. Hello there. Yes, exactly the Padawan to be. Yes, Grogu tries to kick it, tries to roll it. No, Luke activates it with the Force, and it starts hovering. And then what does it do? It shoots at the little bugger. Shoots at the little bugger and knocks him on his butt. And Luke says to him, "You've got to try. It's do or do not. There is no try." But that's what Luke says. Do or do not. Because again, he's passing along the teachings of Yoda. So after a while, Grogu is able to accomplish it. by jumping over these rocks, and he's still getting shot at and everything, but any kind of inspiration helps, I suppose. So Grogu's jumping, and then at this point, Grogu's tired of being shot at and tired of having to jump, so he's looking at the training ball, and he uses the Force, and he destroys it. So then Ahsoka stops by. Let me try to get right to Ahsoka and Luke. Come on, cooperate here. There we go. So Ahsoka stops by, and she actually gives Luke a compliment, saying, "Your training with him is going very well." And Luke says, "I don't think it's so much my training. I think it's the fact that I've helped him remember the training he's already received." And there's even a point in their conversation as they're talking that Ahsoka says, "You remind me so much of your father." So Grogu is tired out. This is him after he's destroyed the training ball, and he actually ends up falling asleep on one of the rocks. This is where Ahsoka says to Luke that Luke reminds her so much of Anakin, which, one of the things she also says in this episode is that she's a friend of the family. And that's true. She's a longtime friend of the family. And the pet I want to be says, "Sorry, Grogu." Yep, I already read that. Sorry, guys. So they're talking, and they're talking about Grogu, and they're also talking about the fact that Mando was in town. And Mando has a gift for Grogu, and then it's going to lead to a decision for Grogu. Meanwhile, Grogu is tuckered out, and Mando returns to Tatooine, and he shows up at Jabba's palace. And one of the things that we see, I'm trying to get to that scene if I can. No, it's unfortunately it's not going to let me. But as we see Mando making his way to Boba's palace, Jabba the Hutt's palace, we see the Jawas and their sandcrawler, and we see the big crate dragon skull tied onto the sandcrawler. So a little connection from season 2 of The Mandalorian, the season premiere. That's all right, brother. That's all right. I don't mind if you guys talk. That's what these live streams are for. You guys can talk. You guys can put messages in the chat. I have no issue with that because I will respond to them. It's not like I'm doing it recorded. I know when I'm doing it live that you guys are going to have things that you want to add. Maybe something I've missed, or maybe something I haven't brought up yet, but you want me to bring it up. You want me to move it along. I don't mind that at all. You guys are part of the Pacific414 community, and I appreciate every communication I get during these live streams. So, Mando ends up landing at Jabba the Hutt's palace. He's greeted by a Gamorrean guard, and trying to get to it, and he tells this Gamorrean guard right here that he is there at the request of Fennec Shand. And let's see. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I went ahead. See, that's what you guys are here for, to keep me on track. Yes, there is so much in this episode. You're exactly right. The Padawan to be. It's all right. It's all right, guys. We're all in this together. So, anyways, he tells this Gamorrean guard. He's there to see Fennec, and the Gamorrean guard takes him into the chambers where we actually, and let's see if I can get him on screen. Nope. There's a group shot of the Gamorrean guard. We have the mayor's major domo right here, Fennec, and Black Chrysanthemum. Of course, Boba's right here. Yes, we actually see Boba Fett make a cameo in his own series, or as I like to call this series, anyways, The Mandalorian season 2.5 or 2.5, however you want to say it. But we actually see Boba. And, they're talking about how the Pikes are taking over. The other powers, the other bosses are basically letting them have their way. And they're not going to do anything. And also, see if I can get them on here. Trying to see. No. Go back. And of course, Boba's Rangers are there. Go, Boba Rangers. I had to say that because I'm not done with the silliness yet. I am not done with the silliness yet. So, they're talking about how they're going to need more help. So Mando ends up leaving them after they say that they're going to need more help. And yes, Losbeck, you are right. It was after that scene because you see the Crate Dragon skull on the Sandcrawler. The Jawas are up there. Jeez, that's a big skull. And we get to Mos Pagos before we find out its new name. And we see this Tenderfoot. This is where I'm going to get silly, guys. So I'm giving you a warning. We see this Tenderfoot watching Mando land in his starship coming into town. He tells Mando, "You can't park that thing here. You got to go park it on that flatland over there." Mando doesn't listen. Mando doesn't care. Mando's there to see the marshal. Don't tell me what to do, Tenderfoot. So Mando gets out. Like I said, Tenderfoot walks over to Mando, says, "You can't park there." And then, of course, the marshal comes out and says, "Deputy, get inside. Get inside. You're a rookie. Do your job and get inside. I'll take care of this." Mm-hmm. 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 I like where you're going with that. I really do, Pat. I want to be. Don't forget me. My name is Boba Fett, and ride like a bantha. Like a bantha. Uh, so, anyways, the Marshal and Mando, they have a little talk. Mando's telling the Marshal, "I have a proposal for you because the town of Mos Espa, well, they need some help. Boba needs some help. And your town might provide just enough muscle that we can actually fight off the Pikes." And of course, the Marshal says, "Why is it my problem? It's not my problem." And even the barkeep says, "That's a big city problem. We're a town here. Let the big city deal with it. Let the problems go to Mos Eisley." So what ends up happening is Mando is able to persuade the Marshal to get the town of Freetown, no longer Mos Espa. Actually, no, not Mos Espa, but Mos Pagos. Sorry, error. But the Marshal tells the barkeep to get every able-bodied person ready to fight. And then what ends up happening is something quite interesting. As the Marshal tells everybody to get inside. And it's literally like any Western scene you've seen where this stranger starts rolling into town and all the town folk go back inside, close the shutters, close the windows. It's literally taken out of that. Because as many have said, I've even said it in my first review of The Mandalorian for season 1. This show is a Western. So, Tenderfoot decides he's going to come out and, try to stand by the side of the marshal. And the marshal's looking, he sees a stranger. Well, the stranger is standing there looking all Clint Eastwood like. But if you've watched the Clone Wars, you know exactly who this stranger is. A little close up of the stranger here, Mr. Cad Bane. That's right. He's there to tell the marshal and the people of Freedom Town, guess what? This is your only warning. See, the Pikes are in control here. Now, as long as you want to stay alive, you'll stay out of this fight. This fight doesn't concern you, Holiday. So, Cad Bane tells him to stay out of the fight, gives them a warning, says the Pikes are in control, and that in order to keep them out, he will match the payment that Boba Fett is willing to pay the town folk for defending Mos Espa. But of course, somebody doesn't listen because he sees Cad Bane reach for his blasters, and yes, this is straight out of a Clint Eastwood Western. There's the marshal at the ready, and there's Cad Bane. They're having a little showdown. And Tenderfoot doesn't listen. Tenderfoot doesn't listen like Hot Rod didn't listen in Transformers the movie when Cub said, "Stay away, lad. That's Prime's fight." No. Tenderfoot doesn't listen and he gets shot. Yeah, he gets shot because he didn't listen like Hot Rod. Yeah, exactly. Exactly the Padawan to be. So he gets shot. The marshal gets shot, but Tenderfoot is dead. The marshal, as far as we know, he's not dead. But Cad Bane says that the Pikes are in control of Tatooine and everybody better cooperate. And of course, everybody rushes out to tend to the marshal. The barkeep is staring Cad Bane down. Now, here is my question. Could there be a possibility that the barkeep here knows that that's Cad Bane and knows that things have just amped up by 9,000? Could that be a possibility? And then we get to where we have Madame Garza, her place, and we have two members of the Pike Syndicate walk in. Let me try to get to them. Trying not to go too fast. Or at least get to where I have a shot of them. All right, go back. You're going too far ahead. But okay. So we see these two members of the Pike Syndicate step into Madame Garza's place. And the droid comes, asks them for a drink. And Madame Garza sends her two employees to offer to shine their helmets. They refuse. They report back to Madame Garza, telling them that the two Pikes refused. And this is where they're asking to shine their helmets. But like I said, they refuse. They report back to Madame Garza and say that they said no. Madame Garza is looking at them with a weird look because she knows who they are. You can tell by that look, she knows who they are. And they mean business. They mean trouble. And Padawannabe says, I don't think they know. If they don't know, they would have heard rumor and know what it could mean. True, true, but I don't know. This look on her face, I think she knows exactly who they are. And that's why she sent her to Twi'leks over to offer to shine their helmets. That's just my opinion. And hello to the Smoking Patriot. Yep. Yep. This was a planned attack. This was definitely a planned attack. Because what ends up happening is trying to get to it. You already see where things exploded. They end up leaving. Right? Be very careful. All right. So, anyways, come on. There we go. They leave this behind, and the droid even tells them, "Hey, you left this behind." Well, too late. Too late because Madame Garza and everybody inside, unfortunately, everything goes boom. You know, there's a big explosion. It's an attack. Yeah, they did. They did. The Pikes are sending a message saying, "Don't mess with us. You mess with us, people are going to get whacked." So it goes to the temple, and Luke presents Grogu with a choice. And he tells Grogu that if he makes one choice, he stays with the Mandalorian. Another choice with the chainmail Beskar armor, well, that's another choice. But I have a question. I have a question, and maybe you guys can answer. Maybe all the freaks in the back can't answer this. And if you watch wrestling anytime, you know what I'm talking about when I say freaks. Okay, so if Grogu puts it on, and as he gets older, does he start wearing the Beskar chainmail like this? Big Papa Grogu is your hookup. Holler if you hear me. I don't know. I thought, I'm going to do that tonight and see what kind of reaction I get from folks. But yes, Big Papa Grogu is your hookup. Holler if you hear me. So let's get back to episode. Let me remove that. Stopping screen and getting back to the other screen. Okay. Grab the right tab and here we go. But anyways, Grogu is presented with a choice. And Padawannabe, I know. You're probably going, oh come on, Mike, that's terrible, man. Come on, Pacific. Really? But anyways, Grogu is presented a choice. Choose the chainmail, Beskar armor outfit, or door number 2. He can choose this lightsaber, but it's not just any lightsaber. It's the lightsaber of Master Yoda. That's right. It's Yoda's lightsaber. Let me try to get words actually. There we go. And of course, Grogu's looking at it like, ooh, that's bright. That's cool. I want that. and Luke sets it down. Grogu starts going toward it, and that's when Luke presents him with a choice. The choice is if he decides to choose the lightsaber, then he becomes Luke's first student and part of his Jedi Academy. But if he chooses the Beskar chainmail, he goes back with Din Djarin, the Mandalorian. So it's left there with Grogu having to make a choice, and that's where the episode cuts out. And it leaves us for next week's season finale, series finale. I don't know if Boba Fett's been renewed for a second season. I haven't heard anything. I don't know if you guys have heard anything. If you have, go ahead and leave it in the comment section here during the live stream, or if you're watching this on the replay, put it in the replay. But that's what we have. And I gotta be honest, I have to be perfectly honest. As chapter 18 of The Mandalorian for season 3, this is a great episode. This is a great episode of The Mandalorian. All kidding aside, if it was season 3 of The Mandalorian, this is another great episode. So, two great episodes in 2 weeks for The Mandalorian. As a Boba Fett episode, it's not that good. There's a problem here when your title character isn't seen in one episode and then only makes a cameo appearance in another episode in his own series where Tamora Morrison is the star of the series, not Pedro Pascal as the Mandalorian. That's a big problem. But that's something that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau and the creatives at Lucasfilm and Disney should have figured out before the show even was greenlit. Robert Rodriguez should have figured that out before the show was greenlit. But in my opinion, and you might have a different opinion, I'd love to hear it. But in my opinion, I don't think they knew exactly where they wanted to go with this series, especially after the success of The Mandalorian. We've seen it in chapter 1. We've seen it in chapter 2. We've seen it in chapter 3. It seemed like they, just threw a story together that not many fans were gravitating to, myself included. Myself included. But as far as this being a good Boba Fett episode, no, it's not. It's a great episode of The Mandalorian, but it's not a good episode of the Book of Boba Fett. And that's something that should have been addressed long before this show was even put into production. They should have had their story set one story, another story, another story, all 7 scripts laid side by side and made sure that the story flowed into the next instead of giving us one story where Boba is crawling out of the Sarlacc pit and is taken prisoner by the Tusken warriors. It's only after he helps them kill the Kraken from Clash of the Titans that they actually start teaching him in their ways. And everything else that ends up happening up to episode 3. Now, episode 4 was good. Of course, episode 5 was good as well. And like I said last week, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. If this was a playoff series and any professional sport where it's the best of 7, well, last week the show's down 2 games to 3, 2 wins to 3 losses. Well, if this was actually game 6, then this series would be tied with the final episode of the season or the series finale, whatever it turns out to be, being the deciding game, being the deciding episode. So, what I'm getting at is even though this is a great episode of The Mandalorian, it is not a great episode of the Book of Boba Fett. And next week's episode, it needs to focus on Boba Fett. It needs to have Boba Fett in it. It needs to have him doing things. I don't care if he speaks in the episode as long as it shows him doing things because that's what he needs to do. He needs to actually take charge. He needs to be the one that's calling the shots. Again, he doesn't have to say anything. All he has to do is wear his armor, wear his helmet, point to where he wants everybody to be, or even if you want him to speak, again, go over it with everybody, give them the gameplay, huddle up and say, okay, you are going to be stationed here. You are going to be stationed here. You know, come up with a strategy. But I don't know. Yes, it is. It is exactly that common sense America, my friend, the smoking patriot. It is. And even the Padawannabe says, yep, Mandalorian 2.5. He also says Grogu smash. Exactly. And let's see. Padawannabe says, if I think of it as a running comic, the Mandalorian Boba would have been a character that got a 4-part one shot. This sort of how I'm thinking of the series. Yeah. Yeah, it's a one shot comic. It's a one shot mini series is what it is. And Amen Fate. Glad to see you here again. Welcome. But next week's episode, it needs to have more Boba Fett. We need to see Fennec. We need to see Black Chrysanthemum. Even though I don't care for him, I will admit I do not care for him. But we need to see the Go-Go Bespin Rangers, or whatever you want to call them, Go-Go Boba Rangers, Star Wars Power Rangers. We need to see them. We need to see the Gamorrean Guards. And we need to see this in at least an hour-long episode. Don't do one of these 30-minute episodes where you're trying to cram everything in 30 minutes and nothing gets accomplished. Unless you're going to have a second season and you want to leave things at a cliffhanger, then don't try to cram everything in at once. But unfortunately, that's what I think they're going to end up doing. They're going to try to cram in so much in this final episode that it's going to just be sensory overload where people are going to end up picking and choosing spots to recap when they're doing their own videos or typing their own reviews for the episode. That it's going to be a cluster of a mess. I'm trying not to curse tonight like I did last night. That's why I'm stopping myself. But the show, it needs to hit it out of the park in episode 7. The season finale needs to hit it out of the park. It needs to be that, 3-point shot to win the game in order to hit it out of the park. It needs to be that Hail Mary pass in order to hit it out of the park, in my opinion. And I can't speak for you guys. I will not try to speak for you guys. You all have your own opinions, you all have your own thoughts. But they need to have some sort of a game plan going into this last episode. Otherwise, people are going to give their actual opinions once all is said and done after next Wednesday, and it's not going to be good. It already isn't good. You already have members of the fan base who don't like it, members of the fan base who are perfectly fine with it, and that's fine. Everybody has their own opinion. We're not all going to agree all the time. And let's see. Him and Fate. Hello, the Padawannabe. Great to see you. But this series, it better have some way of at least tying up some loose ends, have some way of giving us a satisfactory season finale. Otherwise, people are just gonna get on Twitter. They're gonna get in front of their camera on YouTube like I am, and they're gonna voice their displeasure with this series. I'm not a Star Wars hater. It's true that Star Trek was my first love. I'm not going to deny that. I will never deny that. But I am not a Star Wars hater. I want good Star Wars. I want Star Wars movies that I want to go see over and over again. I want TV series that I want to watch each and every week. I want that feeling where, yeah, this is one of the greatest shows I have ever seen. This is one of the greatest shows that I've ever seen as far as a Star Wars show is concerned. Or, this is the greatest piece of Star Wars material I have ever received from Hollywood. But just like with Star Trek right now, with Doctor Who right now, and comics right now, we're not getting what we want to see. We're getting what they want us to see, but we're not getting what we want to see. And the Padawannabe says if Boba doesn't better his performance of when he first got his armor back, there are going to be a lot of disappointed fans for sure. Exactly. Exactly. I mean, it episode 7, chapter 7 is a disappointment. I can see it where folks like myself will do our reviews, giving our honest opinions. And if you've watched any of my videos on this channel, especially during the baseball season, I can give my honest opinion. There are times I'll don't throw off the gloves and say, this is how it is. I will tell it like it is. But you will see people like myself get on their platforms, tell it like it is. You will see people get onto panels on this platform or any other platform and tell it like it is because it needs to be said. We need to let them know what we like about these properties, what they're doing right, but we also need to be critical and let them know what they're doing wrong. Otherwise, they'll never learn. Unfortunately, when it's come to Star Wars lately, it doesn't seem like they've learned all the lessons from us. They haven't learned what we like to a lot of degrees, and they certainly haven't learned what we don't like. I like Star Wars, like I said. Empire is my favorite out of all the original 6. Then it's Revenge of the Sith. Then after Revenge of the Sith, it's the original Star Wars. After the original Star Wars, well, that goes to the Phantom Menace. Then after the Phantom Menace, it goes to Return of the Jedi. And then after Return of the Jedi, it goes to Attack of the Clones. That's how I rank them. That's how I rank them. So this next episode needs to hit it out of the park. Now, if I'm going to give this a star rating for as the episode is, I'm giving it 4.5 out of 5 stars. That's where I put it. As the episode is. If I were to just take it in as it is. If I'm gonna rank it as a sole Boba Fett, no, it's a 1.5 star. 1.5 star if it's just a Boba Fett. But as it is, and as it is also because it's got a lot of Mando in it. It's got Luke in it. It's got Ahsoka in it. It's got Grogu in it. And it's pretty much a Mandalorian episode. It's 4.5 out of 5. I could give it a 5. Trust me, I could give it a 5. But I always like to, give it that, a grade or A minus, but never an A plus. It's like, and I'm gonna bring it up because for those of you who have known me for a while, you know that I've done it. When I would do Over the Barricade podcast with Quitman Jenkins. Now, for that, he has some personal reasons as to why we're not doing it right now. But when I would do that, I would be very critical of the matches and the show that we're grading because I expect them to do better than the last time we saw them. One week they could have a great match, a great show, then the next week they go back a couple of steps. And I expect that from my entertainment. I expect to see good, if not great episodes each and every time. And I want to say hello to Alan Copeland. How you doing, brother? It's good to see you. And the Padawannabes can get it to come up here. The Padawannabe says, I'll say that The Mandalorian really pushed Star Wars forward. The Bad Batch and Book of Boba have been safe. Most fans want excitement right now, not safe. I like both of those shows, but they are not great. And you're right. And we do want excitement. We do want excitement. We don't want them to always play it safe because one of the first things that we even see when we're watching the original Star Wars is, the Star Destroyer taking the ship and the Empire boarding, shooting all the rebels. And one of the other scenes that sticks out too all the time is when Obi-Wan and Luke are in Mos Eisley at the cantina, and those two guys are being jerks to Luke, and Obi-Wan pulls out the lightsaber and slices the one guy's arm off. We expect to see more things like that because we know it's a gritty universe. I'm not saying it's dark gritty, but we know, there's scum and villainy. Wretched hide of scum and villainy, if I'm going to quote Obi-Wan correctly. And yeah, and that's perfectly fine, Alan. That is perfectly fine. 11 out of 10 for you. And that's perfectly fine. And see, Alan and I, we don't always agree, but then there are times we agree, and that's fine. I still love seeing him here. I'd love to have him on a panel one of these days, especially if he's up to it. But for Alan, it's an 11 out of 10. So I'm not gonna, go on Twitter and start reading and ranting about it. Going, oh my god, somebody didn't agree with me. No, no. We're all adults here. We don't have to agree with one another, but if we can be respectful of one another, then you know that's a good thing. Let's see. Jedi business. Go back to your drinks. Exactly. And Alan, and I think Rogu will choose a saver and be given the chainmail armor as a reward. I could see that happening, Alan. I really can. But since you weren't here earlier, and I want to ask you this question. And yes, Padawannabe, I am probably going to use that same joke again. So I apologize for saying the same joke twice. But as Grogu gets older, is he going to say, to all my freaks in the back, Big Papa Grogu is your hookup. Holler if you hear me. Yes, is he going to start wearing the chainmail on his head like Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner? Big Papa Grogu. I know that's one joke. I can only go so far with it, and I've already overextended its stay. I'll admit it. I've already overextended its stay. But yeah, for me, it's 4.5 out of 5. For Alan Copeland, it's an 11 out of 10. Padawannabe, do you have a rating for the episode? If so, go ahead and put it in the chat. And I will put it on screen. And Alan liked that joke. All right. All right. All right. I like that. I really do. Grogu has to go through his early 20s as a tight muscle shirt. Okay, so for the Padawannabe in his rating scale, it's a 9 out of 10. Yeah, it, there were parts of this episode that made me smile genuinely because I liked seeing Luke again. I like seeing Luke as he should have been in The Last Jedi. Not this, "Ugh, get off my lawn. What's this you're handing me? I don't want this. Get off my lawn, girl. No, leave me to my milk." No, we didn't want to see that version of Luke. We wanted to see this version of Luke, the Jedi Master, the one who, actually meets Ahsoka. And let's see, Padawannabe says, but it is totally an episode of The Mandalorian for sure. Yes, it is. It definitely is. There's no denying that. There's absolutely no denying that. I mean, these last two episodes have been The Mandalorian season 3 episodes or chapters, however you want to put it, chapter 17 and chapter 18. So, again, here's hoping that next week's episode hits it out of the ballpark, gets that last game winning shot, throws the Hail Mary pass, you know, shoots that puck into the goal, is able to, you know, do what only Captain Kirk had been able to do and survive the Kobayashi Maru, pass the test. Okay, so Kirk cheated. He changed the conditions of the test, but he got accommodation for original thinking. So let's hope it's able to do that. If not, well, like I said earlier, a lot of us are going to be getting on our soapboxes on our platforms and voicing our opinions, and they may not all be positive. Real quick, maybe still have it on here. Let's see. Yeah, that should be it right there. But I am going to go ahead and wrap this up here in a few moments. But please do meet me over on the Nerporial Lifeforms YouTube channel. He is having his Nerporial sci-fi chat as of right now, and he is talking about The Empire Strikes Back. So please follow me over there. Let him know I will be there shortly and that it's a raid from Pacific 414. So until next time, thank you all for watching. And real quick, see you there, brother. And real quick, if you liked what you saw here, please give this video a thumbs up, share this video with your friends, and if you like the content on this channel, subscribe. If you don't like the content on this channel, that's okay. That's okay. There's plenty of channels out there for everybody, so you're bound to find something that you like. But I appreciate you stopping by and watching. And you can also follow me on social media if you'd like. So until tomorrow, where I will be doing a live game stream, Frontiers, formerly known as Friday Night Frontiers, then it became Saturday Night Frontiers, then it became Sunday Night Frontiers. Well, Frontiers will be returning tomorrow night at 9:30 as Friday Night Frontiers, and we will be streaming Star Trek Online, but we won't be alone. We won't be alone. This will be a simulcast between Pacific 414 and Spock's Friday Nights. And we will be streaming together. We will be playing some of the same missions. I don't know if I have Spock's link still in here. One moment. Yes. So please subscribe to Spock's Friday Nights. He does great work over there. His Star Trek, the episodic series, just reached 1,000 viewers after 12 days. So congratulations to Spock. And to everybody who contributed to that particular video. It was a lot of fun to record a voice line for it, and hope to see you there too. So until then, this has been Mike. Take care, and I will see you all later.